Hello, this is Yehna.
And this is Jessie.
We are excited to be back with another episode. We wrestled through many different questions, but today we wanted to invite you and have a little chat about friendships in different life stages. So, welcome and join us at
At
the
the table,
table.
we are here to talk about friendships again.
Yes.
Yay! More specifically, talking about fighting for a friend, especially as we have been through, the mid-season, like we're in our mid-20s. We've gone
Mhm.
through different seasons with friends now, and we have long-term friendships. That has started to bring new dynamics, and we're realizing like we have a lot of friends that are in different seasons, or everyone kind of starts doing their own life, and they're on their own journey. Like we're not in all like high school, all in college. We're all adults,
Right.
and some are married, some are not, some are single. Life is just crazy. And amidst that, navigating friendships has been interesting for both of us, and we thought we would just ramble about it.
Right.
So, we will be talking about some of our experiences, but also how do we show up as a good friend in the
Mhm.
midst of having those different life stages, and
Right.
feeling that differences.
Mhm. I think we're really looking kind of at the standpoint and just specifically to narrow it down a little more, just when another friend may be having a different relationship while you might be single or vice versa. Just kind of laying out a little bit of the context of which we'll probably approach it a little more and just thinking through how do I grow with them through this, but also preserve my heart is also kind of the outlook. At least I'll try to look into it. So today's truly a ramble session of what we've experienced and what we've learned and what we're continuing to learn. And also, I want to preface a lot of what we will talk about, at least for myself, does still come out of a wound. And so I really did contemplate maybe is this wise of me to speak out of a wound, but I will hopefully with grace and with wisdom approach some of these topics and questions. Yours.
Yep. Here
Okay.
we go. The first one's kind of easy though. The first one is like friends that are still in school and like you're not in school. And that's something that Yenna and I went through. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yenna and I are a year apart,
Yeah.
or like grade level wise. So I remember when you were a senior in college and I was, doing my first year of adulting, I did
Mm.
feel a kind of a different, just like not distance, but a gap, I guess,
Right.
just because we were just going through such different things, even though we were in the same major, even though we knew like what we were going through. I don't know.
You
That's
just have
definitely,
less
yeah.
things to talk about in a sense,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like there's less things that I can possibly hear you out on because I have definitely experienced that, not specifically with you, maybe, but some friends that where I was graduated and I was working and they're still in school. And at some point, instead of just a check in both ways, yes, to an extent we do, but it's more for me, I feel obligated as the older person to check up on them and to walk through with
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you feel less seen in that season, but at the same time, I think that in itself was like, oh shoot. Okay. How do I guess in for myself, I need to figure out how I can work through dynamics with certain friends to
Mhm.
find someone who can see me in my season. So I think that was
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And something that I do want to mention is like throughout the friendship, the level of investment or like care
Mm-hmm.
that you're putting in that other person might look different, right? Like
Right.
if that friend is going through a breakup, you're really there for them, right? And then sometimes, you maybe moved and you're navigating through your transition of
Yeah.
acclimating to a new environment and stuff. And then that friend might be there more to support you, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to ebb and flow. But especially, yeah, even if a friend moves, right? You're not in proximity anymore. And that also looks different. And
Right.
then you're like, okay, if we don't talk as often as we used to, does that mean we're still good? Are we still cool? There's always that
So
Ooh, what
true.
are we? Like DTR moment, right?
Yeah. Because I definitely mean, obviously, me and Jessie are long distance friendships too. And I have other friends that are long distance. And I think it's really comes down to, I mean, we'll continue to talk about this, but it comes down to the communication aspect of checking in with them and learning their communication style and their, I guess, the frequency of how much they do like to communicate. And it really also boils down to trust. Trusting that if nothing dramatic happened, you guys are good. Yana Kim, don't get into your kingdom in your brain building up a new story of what went wrong when in reality we just living lives. Life goes on and you blink and it's already 3 weeks into the month and you're like, what the heck, how is it almost already October? September just started. And so it really does come down to that, but of course on a little more deeper note, it also, you have to check in. For example, Jessie and I, we do need to have a little more communication to check up where we're at. And because we also built that habit and also we're doing a podcast together, we need to know
Mhm.
what's going on. So in that sense, but even then, even though it seems obvious and we assume that oh, this is, and of course, we still need to check in. I think it's really dangerous the moment we just leave it up to almost fate to guide us to the right direction. It takes effort to invest in these friendships, which leads into the different stages in our lives. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like a lot of times it's like, oh, we'll figure it out, which works for people that are super chill, but
Yes.
for people like me, or maybe you're gonna
Me
like,
too.
I feel like that pre-processing, like just talking it out is really important because then it kind of eases your mind of we can kind of know how we're going to head into this new season or at least hope to move into this new season, right? And I was just even thinking about that 5 months or 6 months that we had together. We were basically in a relationship. We saw each other 2 or 3 times a week. And
So
we
true.
knew that that would just be this season. Like we knew this
Mm-hmm.
would never happen again. So we really treasured it, but we also were proactive and okay, when you move, obviously
What
we
did you
can't
do? Yeah.
communicate 3 times a week for 3 hours at a time. Like we had capacity then, but we won't eventually. So
Right.
how can I make you feel loved and seen in your transition and vice versa, right? That was kudos to us for doing that ahead of time
I
because
know.
when you're insecure about it, you overcomplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I didn't need to,
No.
um,
It's true.
which is
Aw.
so good. Yeah.
Yes. I think it was really important to be really straight. I know it sounds very business like, but we sat down and okay, how about once a week? And I thought I knew myself. How about we start with twice a week and build up from there and see how it goes? Oh, I mean, fast forward later, we're like calling 3 times a week, sometimes more, but randomly calls me while she's driving somewhere and I'm doing the same. And so just all of that. But all that to say, it came almost, it looks easy, but it came this way because we chose to sit in this uncomfortableness saying, hey girlfriend, let's be real, we're not really great at this, so let's start it now. Or at least Yena Kim's not good at this, so let's start this now. So
Yeah.
just calling each other out in different areas, not, oh, you're bad at this, so I'm going to teach you, but more, hey, the reality is you're moving and we are not
Mhm.
going to be going to church together. We're not going to Wednesday alpha nights anymore. So that was what really jump started our relationship. And so that's kind of obviously the more positive sides of navigating friends in different life stages and different growth points.
But
But
I think we knew to do that because unfortunately we have been through so many friendships, especially because we've moved around. Like
yeah.
we've been in too many relationships where it just fades.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's no communication and it just stays that way. And you think to be the first one to reach out, but you hope that the other person will do that. And so you
Mm-hmm.
never do it. And then there's just it just ends and it's so sad,
It's
especially
so
if
sad.
that person is someone that you chose to open your heart up to.
Yeah.
Because there's that like bond and there's that depth that you were able to reach.
Mm.
And it's so sad that just the lack of communication or your non-willingness to be take initiative
Mm-hmm.
is the reason why something beautiful has just come to an end.
Right.
And for some friendships, and maybe that's okay, right? Maybe some friends were just meant to be in a season and they don't have capacity for you, or maybe they've communicated that or just have not, and you can kind of tell they don't. That's okay. But for friends where like, oh, if we just talk about it, we could keep this up. It's so wasteful.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to think about this as fighting for a friend, because we have to realize it's a battle to work through two different personalities. As much as a lot of times you kick it off and you're like, whoa, where were you all my life kind of thing. And we music styles match, things you like match, aesthetics match, and you're like, oh my goodness, everything's working out. But guess what? There's going to be moments where your differences clash and one
Mhm.
person won't show up for another, or not, vice versa, or life happens and life gets hard for another friend where you can't show up for another friend. But I think what matters most is, are you willing to fight for them and
Mm,
not understand that you want to value them as a friend, as a human, as someone you care about and love, and want to see the best happen for them. What's painful for me is when you get to my bad habit. Sorry, I keep going back and forth in my conversation, but what
yeah.
was so painful for me initially was I let it die because I just
Mm,
assumed they're gonna leave me. I just assumed that I wasn't worth fighting for. So I jump started my defense mechanism and pushed them away, pulled myself out. I didn't push them away. I just pulled myself out. I just bye
you
bye.
said bye. Don't worry, I'll leave first.
I'll bye. I'll make my way out. And then the second part of such a painful journey that I had to go through is when I finally realized what I was doing, and I did try to put my foot forward in trying to stay in that uncomfy feeling and possibly being rejected and actually being rejected. Now that's a different type of pain to
Whew.
experience, because you're like, okay, I suck at communicating, so let me try this out. Slaps you up your face and punches you down to the ground. Yes, that is not a fun feeling. So I think after that, I just got so scared, thinking, okay, do we even need friends in our life if this is gonna happen? Uh, yes, of course you do. Yes, you do. But those were the questions that would ruminate in my head, because every time I thought I would want to give it a risk or a try,
Mm.
it didn't work out.
Well, I was
Sorry.
gonna say, and it only takes one or two key friendship moments, friendship breakup moments for you to retreat and be like, see, I told you, I tried it and it didn't work out. So we're scratching the whole being uncomfortable and communicating and taking initiative. No, thank you. I
No,
tried it.
thank you.
And see, look what happened, exactly how I thought it would be, and
Yes.
I totally get that. It's so painful.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
then the real learning curve for me was the shift between communicating for the sake of putting a cushion down, or communicating because you actually love and care and want them in your life. Was a
Mm,
shift for me, because I realized, and I really learned that a lot being with Jessie too. And because I realized, oh, we're sitting in this and I have full trust Jessie's not going to take the exit out the door.
mhm.
Because let's be honest, we have had moments where we're like, wow, this kind of is intense. For what reason? And it was not just me over here trying to sugarcoat things like, oh, but it's okay, like you did that, but it's okay, we're gonna do this, but it's gonna be okay. We stopped doing that, instead saying, hey, I admit this is not an area I'm very good at, so how can I show up? Please show me how I can love you best. And
Yeah.
realizing, because he's like, we need to actually schedule like calls instead of just leaving up to fate that it's gonna happen that week. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Concrete things. So put it down. And just little things like that, where I'm like, why was this so hard? It's hard. But just thinking, what made it so hard to get to this point? What
Mm,
was it? Of course, it started with lot of shame in my head, but it eventually came to the point of I needed to find people that valued me as a person,
Mm.
even when I couldn't value myself as a person. And so that was really
Mm.
a huge turning point and a learning curve. Am I good at it still? No.
Wait, so question then. You mentioned how you said, why was it so hard for me? Is it because you have encountered people where unfortunately like they didn't value you? Or like, yeah, what made it so hard to step into?
I don't want to go as far to say they didn't value me as a person. I don't think that's fair on their end, but it was more to first talk about what I did wrong was I didn't show up enough
Mm.
for them to see who I was. I
Mm.
displayed the parts of me that I wanted them to see because I knew the parts of me they don't want to see was so ugly. I didn't even want to see it.
Mm.
Hmm. So there's that part. And then the other part was I was so afraid of hurting their feelings and them thinking I misunderstand them that I would say more words that made it more misunderstandable.
Mm.
Instead of delivering my true heart and feeling, I would sugarcoat it over and over again to the point that no longer saw the strawberry, only the chocolate covering.
Mm.
So it's like, the strawberry is what I really wanted to give you, but I know you don't like strawberries. So let me just like wrap it up into this beautiful chocolate covered mush for you to eat. And so then they don't see my true intention. And then, of course, I'm human because they don't see my true intention. I'm like, they don't see me. And then I leave. But in reality,
Oh,
I
it's
set that
tricky.
up for myself.
Mm.
Instead, what I wish I had done was I wish I had shot a little bit of that arrow and it might have stung. I wish I had rather actually fought for it.
That's why it stings so much, right?
Mhm.
Interesting. I feel like I've had a different experience
Mm,
where I was like, oh, if there's no conflict and if I'm the chill friend, like that's my goal. Like no conflict with anybody, everyone likes me, you
yeah.
know. I don't, but now looking back, like it's sad because that means that I've never let my walls down enough to be known and to reach that level of depth in friendships because I
Mm.
was afraid. I mean, both of us are kind of fear driven and, we're like, oh, bye, dipping.
Bye.
But yeah, working through that has been so interesting. And that's why I think you're one of the first friends where I've had to be in uncomfortable spaces and let myself be in it and to be okay with it. And also feel also this warm feeling of, oh, I went through it and we're still coming out of it alive and
Yes.
stronger than ever, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yes. All that to say, we
I'll
didn't even
say.
touch about our last point of what happens when someone important comes into your life and stirs the pot here.
Ew. Just kidding. Yeah. How do you
Yena,
navigate when someone else is, in a relationship or not? Hmm.
we don't know.
I will say, so this is the part where I will be having to, there are going to be a lot of pauses, which I'll probably edit out because it's still as much as I wish I didn't admit this or have to admit this, but it still is very tender and raw. This is where I struggle. Okay, I'm going to speak in a point where when someone else is in the relationship and I'm still single, what was difficult for me in my end was I fully knew that that person's now significant other will be priority. But what I didn't realize was that I will then be in the back burners. Like, how can I show up as her friend or his friend when they don't see me anymore as a friend
Mm.
in action? Word
Mhm.
wise, I'm their best friend or their friend or whatever. But action wise, I'm the last to be scheduled. They don't want to hear how my day actually was. And I slowly don't feel heard, seen, or valued. by these little things. And I can't help but spiral because I'm like, Yena, Kim, those are so little things. Stop being pathetic and let her do her or let him do him, you know?
Mhm.
Just kind of be better about it. Be a bigger person. Let them have love and let love abound. But what I also need to realize, and when I realized this, it was so painful because then I'm like, oh, I actually do need to protect my heart. As much as this person will be important, I should never be a placeholder.
Mhm.
Cuts. But my friendship should have been a relationship too. It shouldn't be a placeholder so that whenever someone else more important for them came, could be easily plucked out, and now that person comes into that spot.
Mm.
And when I finally realized that, there had to be a lot of uncomfortable conversations, which is so painful because I essentially am saying, oh, essentially what they might hear is that I don't value their relationship. But what I'm trying to say is I value that, but I value me too. So I need to slip out a little bit. And so there's
Mm.
an unsaid misunderstanding that arises that I won't be able to fix. And I just have to let that go.
And this
Yeah.
is, with that being said, we do acknowledge that there are friends in our lives that have done this really, really well. Like even we
Mm-hmm.
have friends that are married and they have really made the effort to check in with us or make us feel like we still matter, right? And we're important. But
True.
unfortunately, like especially when it comes to friends finding a significant other, it's difficult because all that time that you kind of were spending with them slowly starts to inch by inch
Yeah.
shift to a different person. And it's so important in that to communicate, like, hey, I still love you and I still care about you. And things will change, things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean I do not value you. And please help me, like,
See that.
see that and to show my appreciation for our friendship because that is still important to me. And
Mm-hmm.
Yena and I had to experience that a little bit.
Yes.
I will say, Yena, because, and I'm not saying that God used your pain, but like because you have experienced what it's like to be on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
I have never felt like you didn't value me when you were in a
Mm,
season of being in a relationship.
right.
I felt so cared for because you followed through with your commitments, right? And even if you couldn't, you would be real.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I this is the only time I could see this person. Like, can we please are you
Reschedule.
available? Yeah, to reschedule. And it wasn't like a hey, I can't do this anymore. It was hey,
Mm-hmm.
I still care about you and want to check in. So can we just move things around?
Yeah.
And it started so small, but those are the things that counted, right?
Mm-hmm. Which goes the same to you too, because whenever you were in one, I never once thought I wasn't important whenever I came over to your place. You would actually sit there and have conversation with me and actually checked up on me instead of saying like, oh, I just want to do this as like a nice gesture, but I know that in the back of my mind, I need to go to a date in like 2 hours. So like I'll be back. Like I never felt that you were looking at me, you were engaging with me, we were having a time of our life. And at the end, I went home feeling less lost in that season because it was a tough season in that time for
Mm.
me. Like I never left our dinners feeling like I'm the only person in the world that doesn't have anybody. Never once. I really did it.
Oh,
So I also can't have to stop generalizing that everyone will do that.
right.
But I think what's so hard for me right now is when I understand that and I have to let people go because of that,
Mm.
who don't value that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's tricky because now it's like, but you said you want to fight for your friend, which we'll probably get to on a different episode because we're going to go on and on and on. But
Yeah.
it really is about when do you let go? When should you not let go? And all of those fun questions that will come another time.
Right. And to wrap this up, yes, when to let go, when to not, but like, when is it okay to take a step back and know that that doesn't mean it's the end of the friendship? I hope that we can be able to have friendships where we trust and we feel safe enough to trust, right?
Right.
I wish that every person would have a friend that they know, no matter what season, they know they have their 2 a.m. friends. The 2 a.m. friends are real. Like they're in it
So
for
real.
the ride. But
Mm,
also, like, I wonder what's holding you back from taking that initiation to step into uncomfortable spaces to talk through these things.
yeah.
We're all going through different life stages, and I hope that we can keep those who matter to us close and always remember that, yeah, time is it. There's no time to waste in
Mhm.
letting that person know how much you care for them
Yeah.
and want their friendship.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to learn to really treasure them. And but to treasure them, we need to work through the not so fun parts as well. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to our ramble. As you can tell, we're still learning a lot. And again, we're in our early 20s. We have so much more to learn and different stages to go through to navigate all of that in the future. Jessie and I are going to be, one of us are going to be married first, you know? Anyway.
Ah,
Ew. Kind of
not
got
ready for
scared.
that.
Not
Please,
ready.
no.
Not sure ready. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. We are on Spotify and we're on YouTube, and all of our updates are on Instagram. And of course, like I kind of sneak peek, we'll continue a lot of this conversation on our next episode. And until then, bye.
Bye.